All right, so let's start with that top story. There are calls for Eskom to end power cuts following the death of Unako Kewana in the Eastern Cape. The 18-year-old passed away on Wednesday. She had an ongoing problem with a battle to breathe, really. Out of sheer desperation, Kewana often appealed for help on social media during load shedding, as the machine that kept her alive would just switch off during those blackouts. The prayer service was held at her home in Mdantsane today, and our reporter Ronald Masinda has been following the story. He joins us from East London. Ronald, this is just such a tragic story. Tell us a little bit more about Unako Kewana, what her health problem was, and how people are going to remember her.
Well, firstly, Sally, I would just like to say that what I've learned from the story is that us as South Africans, we sort of take for granted just the importance of electricity is in the lives of many others, similar to Unako Kewana. Now, it was a matter of life or death for her. I spoke to her 3 weeks ago, and she seemed bubbly. She seemed very positive. But one thing that came out of that conversation, she said that she knew that she won't live long, and she just wants to enjoy the remaining days of her life with her family members. She stays with 5 siblings and a mother. But the story of Unako started in 2019, when she started experiencing breathing problems. It was then when she was diagnosed with a lung condition, and now she's been living ever since 2019 with an oxygen machine. And the battle for her was really, will electricity be on or off? There were concerns that with load shedding, it will be end. And eventually she developed anxiety, depression due to the circumstances of load shedding. And I know that on certain occasions when I spoke to her, she also said that, you know, in as much as she is worried about the future, she just hopes that at least she can also inspire other people. She told me that she was also part of a group of people that were going through the same ordeal. They were talking about things of just how long do they think they will survive for, if there were any sort of operations to assist them, will they go through with it? She was against that because she felt with the conversations that she had with her group members that many of them don't survive after completing the operation. But the family deeply saddened, and they feel that, you know, in as much as they've lost Unako, they want to urge Eskom and the rest of the health community.
Yeah. Ronald, before we get to that, I do have to just ask you, she died on Wednesday. Can you tell us more about the circumstances of her death? For example, did she die as a direct result of a loss of power to her breathing machine, or was there something else?
So to my understanding, and this is a conversation I had with her aunt earlier today, she says that the doctor, according to the diagnosis she received from the doctor, her body was deteriorating and that it was impacting on some of her organs. And it's because of that when she died. But also it didn't help her in terms of not being without oxygen on certain hours. We do know that on occasion she went to a hospital, but the family says that much more should have been done. They've been, calling for assistance with regards to solar panels or generators, just to ensure that she remains at home and that she knows that at least she could breathe.
Okay, so in other words, her body was deteriorating as it was, but I would imagine that the on-again, off-again nature of her breathing apparatus, is that why her family is pointing a finger directly at Eskom?
So the family says that people in their condition should be treated in such a way where there should be electricity. It must be made compulsory that they have electricity 24 hours a day. They shouldn't have a resort to going to hospitals. And that's what happened in the life of Unako Kewana, where the ambulance regularly fetched her at certain occasions. But before that, the family was up in arms, where there were situations where she even wrote on social media pleading for help, pleading for assistance with regards to her condition. And eventually what she told me 3 weeks back before she passed on was that there was a health official who eventually reached out, and this took social media for the health official to identify the problem. But we also heard, Sally, from Petros Majola. He is an activist. He's been very vocal about the issues many people like Unako Kewana face here in the Eastern Cape. This is what he briefly said.
We need to come together, begin to assist each other, also to improve the conditions in our health facilities, also to talk to Eskom. Eskom must come to a situation where they are saying there will be no more load shedding, because this thing of load shedding, when Unako knows that at 9 p.m. the power is going off, Unako will start panicking, would start crying, because she knows that the war is going to start. Now, Eskom has also had their own impact in taking away Unako's life. If they can stop this thing of load shedding, because we are buying this electricity for that matter, what are they doing with the money?
Yeah, I mean, that's just so sad, this 18-year-old starting to panic when she knew that the power was going to go out. Has there been a direct response from the Eastern Cape Health Department, from Eskom? Clearly, this activist is saying that they had a part to play, perhaps whether it was in not isolating her oxygen or her breathing apparatus, or ring fencing people like her who cannot be without electricity. It's a big topic of conversation. Has there been any response?
Yes, there has been a response from the Eastern Cape Health Department, but before I try to unpack what was said, it is also worthy to note, Sally, that Unako's story is a story of a double tragedy. Her mother in 2016 went for an operation at one of the health facilities, and after that operation, she became ill and eventually she became disabled. So she can't speak properly and she can't walk properly. And she was the breadwinner of her household, and eventually she couldn't work anymore. And Unako played a big role in assisting her mother where she could with regards to her own health issues. But coming back to that question of the Eastern Cape Health Department, we do know that the department has said that they've been providing ambulance services for people who had the condition, who have the condition that Unako had, and that during stages of load shedding, they'll bring the ambulances to the places where they stay, and they will be brought to hospitals so that they can at least have some oxygen machines and the supplies that they needed for them. But we also heard from the spokesperson of the health department earlier.
The department ensured that the patient was assisted to access health services in her condition by providing her with a mobile oxygen tank, and further ensured that the oxygen tank got refilled whenever necessary. An ambulance was always made available whenever needed to fetch the patient from home to Cecilia Makiwane Hospital to ensure that she does not run out of oxygen. During the extended load shedding period, all the patients that survived from mobile oxygen tanks had to be admitted in hospital to ensure uninterrupted access to power. But this particular patient refused hospital admission.
I mean, that's interesting. They're saying that the patient refused hospital admission. They're saying that they were trying to help her. So that's what the Eastern Cape Health Department is saying. I'm wondering if the family has got a response to that. And also, has Eskom spoken out about this?
Not as yet, Sally. The news of Unako also shocked us many because the last time, I actually heard about it late last night. So those are the conversations that I'm sure we will have during the course of the week. But what I can tell you is that we're already seeing quite a presence of local government officials coming to Unako's house. We know that the Department for Social Development, MEC, Ukiwe Fanta, will also be there to lend support. But, the family feels that everything now is reactionary. When they needed the help from government, they were nowhere to be seen. And I know that the family has refuted the claims made by the Eastern Cape Health Department that they refused help.
Okay, so talk to me then about Eskom, because it's a very serious charge to lay at Eskom's door. And I'm wondering if the family is pursuing legal action, if they're going to push ahead with this. Just give me a sense of the issue around Eskom, because we know that the load shedding does cause all sorts of knock-on problems.
Well, what I can say at this stage is that from the conversations I had with Petros Majola, who is acting as this family spokesperson, they are looking for some form of legal advice with regards to what took place at Unako's house, because not only was she complaining about issues of being turned away from Cecilia Makiwana, which is one of the biggest hospitals in the province, but there were issues where oxygen supply was not, they were not receiving it regularly. And there were also issues, Sally, with regards to how it seemed like the load shedding timetable wasn't followed as supposed to, because sometimes you'd have 2 hours of load shedding, which was normal at a certain time. But areas in Mdantsane and many townships, they'll go without electricity for hours and possibly until the next day. So these were some of the concerns and issues raised by family and the activist Petros Majola. But it is a developing story. I think before she's even laid to rest, I'm sure we're going to get more updates with regards to the issues that were faced by this family.
Oh, it's just so very sad, and that family obviously grief-stricken at this point. Thank you so much. That's our reporter Ronald Masinda in the Eastern Cape telling us about Unako Kewana, 18 years old. She had a lung condition. She relied on electricity-powered breathing machine. When she knew load shedding was coming, she would panic because she knew that she wouldn't be able to use that breathing machine. So from what Ronald is telling us, the family is not saying that the machine cut out during load shedding and that's why she died. That is not what we're hearing. What we are hearing is that her body was starting to deteriorate and she was battling stress and depression, possibly because of the circumstances she was in, you can imagine. And that ultimately led to her demise. But this is not an optimal situation to keep a very ill person in with no consistent electricity supply.